Hello and welcome to another episode of Short Sharp Schlocks, the YouTube show from the makers of Schlock Tactics, which is a bad movie podcast, but here we review new movies whether they be good, bad or otherwise. Now the last Schlock Tactics episode that we did was a giant crocodile or killer crocodile special where we reviewed Alligator and Blood Surfs, two quite bad, quite schlocky killer crocodile movies which you can check out on that last show that we did. But the reason why we did that is because there is a brand new killer crocodile film out which is called Crawl. Now Crawl is directed by someone that a lot of horror fans will be familiar with, one of the biggest and best horror directors of the last sort of 10-15 years, Alexandre Aja. You would know him from Switchblade Romance, aka Haute Tension, the Hills of Eyes remake, Mirrors remake, Piranha remake, a lot of remakes, but also Horns as well, which is great, and also is responsible for producing Maniac, which is one of the best horror remakes ever. So this is Alexandre Aja's return to directing after a few years away. Like I say, it is a sort of a disaster movie, a killer crocodile movie, which is also kind of set in, real life disaster, flood, hurricane sort of scenario as well. So, I'll give you a quick breakdown of the plot here. The main character here is called Haley, played by Kaya Scodelario. She's the lead. She's basically a champion swimmer who is asked to go and check on her dad during this terrible hurricane that is coming into town to make sure he's okay. Her dad is played by a guy called Barry Pepper. Funny name, but you might recognise him from Saving Private Ryan and The Green Mile. He was kind of a big late 90s kind of actor, so you probably would recognise him in this. So basically she gets down there and he seems to have crawled into the sort of underneath of the house where the foundations are, because that's, I guess, the safest place in a hurricane. But unfortunately, there's also several aggressive alligators down there as well, and it sort of becomes a race against time with her and him stuck in this underneath of the house. The water's pouring in through the sort of holes in the wall. The underground space is filling up, so they've got to avoid these crocodiles. They've got to avoid drowning. People all around them that are sort of flying past on their boats, and then they get eaten as well. So, and of course it comes down to Haley being able to use her champion swimming skills to sort of save the day. But I mean, even when they get out from under the house, there's a lot more stuff happens here. It goes on for quite a while. It's not just contained to this sort of small crawl space, as the sort of title will suggest. So that's it really in a nutshell. I won't give too much away, but I quite like this one. It was quite Hitchcockian, maybe being a bit generous, but Hitchcockian in its suspense early on, trapped in a tiny crawl space with these crocodiles, alligators, whatever you call them. Special effects on the alligators were really, really good. They looked really realistic. We've come a long way since the giant sort of rubber heads that we talked about in our last Schlock Tactics podcast. So really good effects, really good kind of atmosphere as well. In the cinema there was rain and wind lashing all around you, and a lot of that seemed to be practical effects, actual water being thrown at these actors and who looked drowned and sort of traumatized by it. So I liked a lot of that. There was a lot of realism in the film, which is quite rare in the killer alligator sort of genre. I was a little surprised that on Rotten Tomatoes it had 82%. So that was a little bit higher than I would have given it. So, I mean, it although it is good, it doesn't really do anything that hasn't already been done in the killer crocodile genre. And also it has to walk a kind of a difficult line between the silliness and the reality of towns being battered by hurricanes, which towns in America often are battered by hurricanes. So it sort of feels like a more serious Sharknado, but also a bit kind of jokey and a bit silly in parts as well. You're just waiting for the crocodile to pop out the window, and sometimes the characters punch them. It can get a little bit daft sometimes. So it's a bit of a confused tone, a bit of a confused direction that they are going for. But I still enjoyed it a lot. Like I say, it does go from the underneath of a house, and then this sort of trying to get away in a boat, and then they have to crawl through a house, and it's like crocodiles are getting smashed through windows every which way you look, and it's a small cast and it's quite a tight sort of small suspenseful film, so I do really like that. So yeah, if you like killer crocodile movies like I do, then you'll want to check this one out. Just like every other movie that comes around, it's certainly a hell of a lot better than the Sci-Fi Channel fare that we've had over the last 10-15 years, and a lot better than Sharknado and those sorts of things. But I don't know, I felt it was sort of lacking in originality in a way, and it could have surprised me a bit more, but maybe I've just seen too many of these kind of films. But yeah, check that out if you get the chance. It's in cinemas now, actually getting a full theatrical release, which is quite unusual for this kind of film as well. So I'm quite pleased with that. Get out there and support, original horror IP. If you did like this, like I say, there is stuff like Alligator and Blood Surf that we reviewed on the latest episode of the podcast. But on that show, I also recommended 2 films called Rogue and Blackwater, which are from 2007, both of them, which was like the year of the killer crocodile, basically. Both of those films, really good special effects, really suspenseful, quite serious, sort of tense killer crocodile films. And I guess I wanted a bit more of this from Alexandre Aja, who is capable of very, very tense and suspenseful films. Let me know what you thought. If you checked this out and you've been to the cinema, let me know what you think. Where does it rank for you in the pantheon of killer crocodile, killer alligator movies, disaster movies? Let me know in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel, and then you'll know whenever we put a new one of these short reviews out. Obviously, go check out the podcast. You'll see episodes, hopefully to your right, of all the recent podcast episodes we've done. That's where we talk about really terrible bad movies. And yeah, stay tuned to the YouTube channel for another episode of Short Sharp Schlocks. My name's Ben Ash, and I'll see you next time.
It's alive, it must be.